why Gen Z gave up on kids. Maybe it's because the young men have the testosterone levels of 13-year-old girls, and all of the women in Gen Z, at least 65% of them are on some type of hormonal birth control that makes them feel like they're already pregnant. It tricks your body into thinking that you're pregnant. So you probably won't want to have kids biologically if your body already thinks that you're pregnant. Maybe that's part of the reason why, I don't know. But for people to go against their biological imperative, something that everything in nature does, even unintelligent life chooses to procreate, for people to decide to not do that, it seems to be a symptom of a sick society in some way. But let's go ahead and get right to the video.
The family dream for decades around the world was going through life exactly like this. Going through elementary school to high school and having your typical good and bad experiences. Good experiences being meeting good friends you may have for life, and bad experiences being, I don't know, getting your head dunked and swirled in a toilet. I refuse to believe this has ever happened in real life. Like, I don't know where shows came up with this trope. Meeting your high school sweetheart and you both graduating. Going through college and having your wild phases. Then after graduating, having a couple more years before settling down, marrying, and having kids.
I will say, and I know this is an unpopular opinion because there are a lot of book thumpers out there, but I'm just saying, from my experience personally, I don't see a lot of people that are getting these jobs in the degrees that they worked hard for during college. I don't see anybody getting those jobs. And I think that a lot of that data is skewed. Like, they're like, oh, if you have a college degree, then over your lifetime, you're going to make this much more money. I wonder what those statistics would look like if you accounted for, like, if you took out all the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and you took out like jobs like doctors and lawyers, obviously jobs that you need degrees for. I wonder what those statistics would look like over a lifetime if you took that out, and if you equated for the amount of debt that people go into for student loans. I wonder what that would equate to, because I would guarantee you, especially in today's time where companies don't even really care about degrees anymore, everybody's been told this is going to be a great investment, go into debt, go get this degree. And now it turns out companies don't even care about degrees anymore. They want you to have 5 years of experience at 18 years old, right? So I don't know. I wonder in today's society what that would actually look like, because a lot of the people that I know that went and got these degrees, they actually don't get jobs in these degrees. A lot of them are working in fields that you don't even need a degree for, funny enough. And to be honest too, college was about like the best and the brightest for a while, but I don't know, somewhere in the 90s or in the early 2000s, a bunch of movies and propaganda came out that made like college more about partying than actual like academic achievement. And now really college is like a big old orgy with a bunch of alcohol sponsored by the state, in my opinion. That's just what I seen when I was there, but I was there like 7 years ago, so it could be different. I would assume it's worse, but some people might say it's better. I don't know. Y'all let me know in the comments.
Mostly through the world, I feel like this is the typical path people see of how it goes. And with Gen Z, it's becoming more and more common for people to not want this path. According to the stats, almost 1 in 3 Gen Z and millennials are saying they won't have kids at all. Not even talking about kids, most aren't even trying to get into a relationship. Most dudes are either chronic gooners and gave up on love after their middle school breakup, and most girls are either insane femcells on Twitter saying men should have to earn the right to have freedom.
Every guy should start in jail and have to work his way out.
Absolutely.
I think
love that idea.
Because it's like you need to earn your place out here.
You do.
In my opinion.
You do, and it should be treated as if they're on probation for a while. Like one strike, you're back.
Yeah, even when they're out. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, all of those women are on birth control, though. Like, when half of the population, 65% of half of the population is on a hormonal birth control, which literally changes what you are as a being, right? It doesn't just change your hormones change who you are and what you are as a being. It changes your libido, it changes what you're attracted to, it changes your mentality, it gives you mood swings, it makes you more susceptible to depression and anxiety. So when you have 65% of half of the population, which are women, on this, substance that essentially changes what you are and makes your body feel like it's pregnant, it's not surprising that a lot of those women don't want kids.
Slave masters have that type of idea going on. At least they're being nicer, I guess. They're saying they'll free us. Anyways, I'm so glad of hearing the stats. It's not just me, and y'all are alone too. We are gonna be single the rest of our lives and have zero chance of a relationship. On 3, Gen Z, who's with me? 1, 2, 3. Nope. Nobody did. Yeah, so I thought it would be pretty interesting to talk about why it's become how it is for Gen Z. You know, people always talking about how birth rates are dropping drastically. And if you think of it, it's kind of hard to find someone nowadays that has kids in their early, mid, or late 20s.
Yeah, it's
like
crazy.
Out of all people I've met in my life, I genuinely only know 2 people in my life that are Gen Z and have kids.
Exactly, and it's crazy because, like, when I was growing up, like, aunts and uncles were about 25, 24 years old. They seemed so much older to us because we were so much younger. But now that I'm this age, I'm like, we're not that old, but it is surprising to see the amount of people that don't have kids. Like, I went to college, I ran Division I track, and there were so many pretty girls on the track team that were smart and educated, well-spoken, promising futures, but they went to college, they got in a bunch of debt right away. They got out of college and had to go get jobs to start paying off that debt. And because you start going to work and being an adult, you don't have so many places where you get to meet people like you did in college. So really nowadays, if you're not meeting the person that you want to be with before college, afterwards it's so hard because you're just trying to keep up with all the bills and stuff that you don't seem to have much time to meet with people and to build relationships. So and because college has now become more about sleeping with people than it is about finding love, it doesn't even really seem to be the place where a lot of people are even finding love. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of women, even at now, unprecedented numbers of women my age that don't have any kids. They're still traveling, going on beaches, smoking hookahs, drinking margaritas. And I mean, it takes time. Like, not only at 30, now you got to meet somebody. And obviously your standards are going to be higher because you got your life together a little more. You're going to want somebody else to have it. So you got to meet somebody that's appropriate for you. You got to court each other for about a year. If you're doing it the right way, you want to get married, that's going to take another year. So you might be 32 before you even start having your first kid. And that's if you meet somebody today. Right? So finding that person in the first place is going to be the longest part of that experience. So I know, I'm telling you right now, man, there's going to be a lot of women that are my age, millennials, 30 years old. This is going to be the first wave of unprecedented numbers of women that are single and childless. And I'm starting to see it happen. Like, you just hear about these statistics, but to see it happen in real life, like to see people not actually having kids or even relationships in real life, it is starting to be a little bit eerie at this point.
And this trend is exactly following how it was for millennials. Crazy to think how the older generations was just popping out kids as soon as they hit 18. Yeah. Nowadays, if I see an 18-year-old saying they're gonna have a kid, all I'm thinking of is, man, his life is absolutely bro. This is the most obvious one, but one of the main
one of the reasons why they're not doing it, though. Gen Z has a negative perspective on kids. They're very antinatalist and they're very nihilistic. The older generations, they believed in family. They believed in kids because the materialism wasn't there yet. Like, people didn't have enough money to be materialistic. And when you don't have enough money to be materialistic, the only thing you really have to value is family. That's why you see the poorest demographics of every country and the poorest countries in the world as a whole having the most kids. Is because when you don't have the money or capital to indulge in materialism, you have to value family. That's why also in countries, even as individuals, countries as a whole, the richest people also have fewer kids too, is because you can indulge in other interests. So I think that a lot of Gen Z just has a nihilistic perspective of kids, and they have an overinflated idea of what it takes to raise a kid. They think that money, because they're materialists, and nihilists, they think that money is the most important component to a child, when really it's just a father being able to teach their kids lived experience to make them easier to navigate in the world, right? So it's more about the effects of a father being able to teach their kids certain things. Once you meet bare necessities, like having food every day, having air conditioning, like kids got a bed to sleep on, outside of that, it just comes down to how you parent them, not really how much stuff you can give them. Like, from my personal experiences, the best experiences that I have and the most memorable things, even though I grew up without a lot of money, I'm fine. Right? So with the nihilistic perspective that a lot of Gen Zers have today, and the perspective of society today, my mom had my brother at 15 and me at 18. She probably would have at least aborted me and probably would have aborted both of us. And it would have just seen as, oh, it's just how it's supposed to be. But even though we grew up without much, a lot of our best experiences, a lot of our character development came when we didn't have much, and we're perfectly fine human beings. Nothing bad happened to us. We didn't grow up with a lot of money, but still, we're okay. But I think that a lot of Gen Z, they have a nihilistic perspective. They have a materialistic perspective. They believe that if they can't give their kids like this extravagant life, then they shouldn't have kids, or you can't afford kids or whatever. But I grew up without very much, and I live a very fruitful life, and I'm very happy that these ideas of abortion and even parenthood and the nihilism and antinatalism towards kids didn't exist when I was growing up, or I probably, or before I was born, or I probably would have been aborted, to be honest, with a lot of the ideas that people think of now.
Is the cost of living has been absolutely fried the past couple of years.
Yeah,
I know.
always
I
the
talk
thing.
about it a lot and all the time, but man, how can I not? I mean, literally no one even has an ounce of hope. If you ask Gen Z what their hope is for the future, all they're gonna think of is how the cost of living is absolutely cooked and it's only gonna get worse. AI and clankers are gonna take like 80% of the jobs we have, and the US is gonna go into civil war over these dumbass politicians. The cost of living would be one thing if it was just happening in one or two countries, but the fact that it's happening in multiple countries at the same time, man, just pass me the cigarette already. Us Americans always focus on our house prices and how they are, which is true, but I feel a little more patriotic when I look at ours compared to the UK and Canada. This is a £650,000 house or $879,000 house. 5 bedrooms and 1 bathroom is diabolical. I know the bathroom looks like Chernobyl every day. And in Canada, this is a $1.6 million house. No wonder Drake left out years ago. I wouldn't want to be there either. And even though I think money is obviously a factor to things like the house, I think there are people in Gen Z and millennials that can afford things like houses with a mortgage. But one of the main reasons they won't do it is because if they do get that typical family experience of getting a house on mortgage and having kids, they know they're going to be stuck paying it for the next 30 years, probably barely scraping by. And in the act of doing that, the kids are going to get neglected in some way. I know with my experience growing up,
that's just not true. And that's the reason, like that's the nihilistic perspective that Gen Z has. And that's just not true. My parents had a mortgage, and we were fine. My dad wasn't around at everything like, you know, maybe more modern dads are, but still at the same time, I was raised 2 parents. I was fine. We were happy. I mean, a lot of my happiest experience didn't come from my parents spending money on things. It came from me being outside with my friends, getting life experiences that made me, understand the world a little bit better. So yeah, but that just comes from a difference in perspective, a fear of risk. And usually what happens is when you have family and people you love, you're more likely to take on those risks and those things that take away your freedom, like having a mortgage and taking on the responsibility of kids. I think a lot of this starts with Gen Z not having relationships, because when you don't have good relationships, you don't see those things as worth it. Versus when you got a woman you love, you start thinking about getting that woman a house and finding some financial stability and then eventually having kids. But first you got to start with having a person you actually care about enough.
That typical type of suburb area, all of the kids' parents in the neighborhood, including mine, were barely home. We would be out when kids actually went outside late, and it would be 9, and some of them were still not back, because on top of balancing the bills they had to pay, they also had to balance their kids' expenses as well, which ended up affecting younger generations' mental health and is a part of why it's such a problem now. With younger generations nowadays, we don't want to put that same type of burden on our kids. Every generation tries to improve how they were parented and change it, and I don't know about y'all, but I actually want to be able to do things with my kids. Go to Disneyland.
That's what it's about. That's what it's about.
Places. But if I gotta sit there balancing in this economy a $500K mortgage of a home that's the equivalent size of a shack, as well as taking care of my kids' expenses, I know it would be too much for me. Which is why a lot of Gen Z is even letting go of the thought of having kids.
It's funny because a lot of Gen Z, because of their nihilistic and antinatalist perspective, they think that their inactivity to have kids is like some type of activism. Like, yeah, we're fighting against the machine. We're not creating more slaves for the machine. When I think actual activism and actually doing something that's revolutionary is fighting against the machine. It's starving the machine. It's taking action. It's moving out of the city where they want to charge you $2,500 for rent. It's saying, go fuck yourself. I'm going to go live in the sticks. Where I used to live in Minnesota, it was a town of about 40,000. We had a Walmart. We had all the different things we needed, a hospital and everything. And I was paying $500 for rent. But that's because I was willing to live in Minnesota where it gets a little cold in the winter and live a more frugal life. I didn't want to be in the city. I didn't need to be in the city because I couldn't afford it. That's actually taking action. Starving the machine, cutting down all of your bills, cutting down your expenses, getting rid of all the bullshit subscriptions you don't need that keep you on that hamster wheel of working and giving your money to a company. That's fighting against the machine. That's actual activism. Choosing to go against your biological imperative, especially when I think that depopulation is the actual goal, I don't think that that's a real activism. I think that's the new lazy activism where you pretend to be taking action by doing nothing when really you're just refusing to make different changes in your life that could contribute to a more fruitful life. And that is a life of you living frugally, choosing to you expenses at the bare minimum, working as little as possible, and any money extra that you make, you actually put it into savings instead of buying pointless shit that you don't need. That would be actual revolution, starving the machine to death and choosing to start to prioritize family over materialism. That would be actual activism. But I think that Gen Z has been psyopted into believing that their inaction, basically leading to the depopulation that I think the elitists might want, is actual action. And I just don't buy that narrative. I think it's the very opposite. I think you're pretending to be virtuous by saying you're not having kids because you don't want to feed the machine. But really you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot, in my personal opinion. I think going against the machine is teaching your children to live a life frugally, without expenses, without bills, refusing debt, getting out of debt, teaching your kids those values, the value of freedom by never getting into debt, never signing up to these bullshit subscriptions for Netflix and shows that we don't even watch, and all these other different things that we tend to get tied down with because we want to live a material life. I think that fighting against the machine is starving the machine by not involving yourself in those things, and prioritizing family by going and get a cheaper rent and doing those things.
How would you want to bring kids into a scenario where it's potentially going to be chaotic? There's all different types of wars going on. You don't know what's going to happen economically in the next years. It's also the reason why the age of having kids has been being pushed up a lot. There's a lot of women now who are having kids in their mid-30s to early
that's crazy.
40s, which happened
that's
less
so
in the past because it was kind of shamed by society.
I seen a statistic that said that there were more women that gave birth to children over the age of 40 than there were teen pregnancies this year, or something like that. Y'all can fact check me, but it was something like that. It was crazy.
It has gotten better in a lot of countries, but there is those places where it's still like a very bad thing to do. I find that so weird. Like, I would never sit there and judge someone for having kids later in life. It's one thing if you're bringing up potential fertility concerns, but a doctor would tell you if you're fine or not before anyways. If I did want kids also and wanted to pay for a house, I'd probably wait until at least 70% of it's paid off, which older generations did not do. They kind of just hopped into a house and popped out some kids, then hoped and prayed they could pay off the house eventually. Another thing is younger generations are valuing their freedom way more than other generations in the past. You'll see a typical boomer be like, when I was your age, I already had 5 kids with another one coming. What's the holdup, son? Yeah, the holdup is we actually want free time in our life and not have our life dedicated to kids fully.
Yep, there you go. Materialism and nihilism. Exactly what I said. Wanting to go to Disney World, assuming that because you can't go to Disney World, your kid's not going to live a fruitful life, saying that you want freedom and time and all these other things like that. You could value your freedom and your peace in different ways than just indulging in margaritas on different beaches and considering that to be freedom, in my opinion, though. But, you know, I got a different view of the world, obviously.
Back then was literally just shaped on, you gotta have kids or else you won't reach your full happiness. And kids are amazing things in life. I think I gotta say that anyways because I am the child of my parents. Some people get surprised though when I tell them I'm not even thinking of having kids in my 20s and I'm probably gonna do it mid to late 30s. It should have never been a thing in the past where people found you weird or strange if you didn't have any. Never in my life when I was younger and I saw a family member who didn't have kids did I think they were strange. And now that I'm grown, I find it even more weird when a grown-ass adult thinks that. Social media was the true changer of how Gen Z and millennials approached the way they wanted kids. Before social media, people still went on vacations and traveled the world, but it's given us a brand new light on things you didn't even know existed in your own city. Like, you could go on TikTok and find some miscellaneous random fun thing in your city you never heard of before.
Yeah, people did those things a lot less because, again, they valued their money, they valued their peace, they lived a frugal life, they lived in smaller houses. They had more kids because, again, they value family, but just in smaller houses, they stitched clothes and they did a bunch of various things to live frugal lives. They didn't actually get to travel a lot. So that's why, like, Gen Z will complain about the circumstances, but yet continue to indulge in the circumstances or in the things that keep them in their exact circumstances while refusing to make any changes to their lifestyle. And like he said before, when it comes to the real estate stuff, this is just going to get worse, by the way. When it comes to money, this is going to get worse. Like, this isn't like have you seen the U.S. debt? That isn't something that solves itself, brother. It's going to continue to get worse. And I think that eventually when people realize they can't afford those things that they value once before, they'll realize the only thing that really matters is family. It's, you know, and so I think that will come eventually, maybe not even in Gen Z, but I think that it's destined to happen eventually because eventually it's going to get to the point where people can't afford the shit that they want to prioritize over family. They just won't even be able to afford it.
To do. I would know about a bunch of the little fun things that were going on in my city without the internet. And now, because Gen Z and millennials aren't having enough kids and birth rates are plummeting, all the governments around the world are panicking what to do now. You got countries like Japan and South Korea pouring billions into fixing it only to have it get worse. Trump signed a law giving every baby born in America an $1,000 investment account. You know, I'll give the guy that one, but is that money gonna even be worth anything in like 18 years? If inflation keeps up, we're gonna be paying $200 for a Big Mac at McDonald's by the 2040s. That's if we don't have a civil war with the clankers by then. No matter how much money the government gives to help with child costs, I think the lifestyle trend is stronger than that, and it won't just fizzle out. Unless the government starts paying for like 70 to 80% of people's child expenses. It's now embedded in our society with younger generations where people are simply valuing their freedom more.
Actually, every number says that it'll get worse. The more money everybody makes, the more wealthy a country is, the less kids they have. So actually giving people more money will actually make this problem worse based on all of the information we have today. Because, like I just said, the poorest people have the most kids. The people who have the most things have the least kids. So that's just how it works.
You can see the stats. Even in places where the cost of living is decent to good, they have less kids because to people, it's no longer their forefront goal in life. Even in countries right now where the birth rate may be booming, like for a lot of the African countries, they're getting developed really fast. And as soon as it's developed to the point where people don't really feel a need as much, it's gonna drop. Crazy though how the governments only now care when people have been telling them for years they can't afford things. A lot of people say the only reason why the government even cares that the birth rate is declining is because they'll have less workers, and with less workers they get paid less and make less money. But when you ask them to put something,
with less workers you have to pay more for everything that you get. Less workers, less people means less innovation. When population growth is on the upswing, you get more innovation. Look at countries like Japan versus when they start to go on population collapse, which they have over the past like 10 to 20 years. They've been dealing with population collapse. You've seen the innovation from Japan, like in the 90s when they were booming in tech, early 2000s, booming in tech. It's of course stagnated because of their issues that they're having with population. So yeah, it's not only for the governments, it's also for you too. Everything that you value in terms of your materialism will be more expensive. Every service will be more expensive because there are less people. You'll have less access to your welfare programs, all your, government sponsored things because there'll be fewer taxpayers, just a bunch of different issues. Not only that, but there are huge supply chain issues that come with not having as many people. So yeah, you're not just talking about issues for the government. You're talking about more expensive livelihood already on top of the debt and inflation that we already have, making it more expensive as far as your individual livelihood, right?
It's a law to help us. They go, all right, I hear you. So you know what? $50 trillion to Israel. The hilarious thing is hearing older generations talk about how we don't work enough and we're lazy. Most of y'all already
better
know
be careful there,
half
buddy.
the time to be able to afford.
Don't want to start talking about 109 bars or getting kicked out of 109 schools. Things start getting weird.
House working a job like us. But what's really crazy and what they don't want to acknowledge is how insane the billionaires were taxed back then. From 1940 in America to 1960, the highest income tax rate was 90%. No wonder it only took them 2 years to get a house. Y'all was basically getting them handed to you. Most of the ultra wealthy people back then didn't pay that full percentage, but they still paid a lot more than what happens today. Today, the richest out there got like 500 different loopholes where they can pay $0 in taxes. I promise you, if they change the laws to be like this again, you would see the birth rate at least double. Another thing that plays a factor into
again, all of that is based under the idea that the more money and the more materialism people have, and this is again the Gen Z mantra, the more things that I get, the more likely I am to have kids. And again, every part of data that we have says the complete opposite. This is not an issue of materialism, and it's not something you could throw money at. This is an existential issue. Humans are much more complicated than what you can afford. And kids are certainly, and raising kids is much more complicated than just giving them things. And so, yeah, I don't think this is the issue that you're going to be able to throw money at.
That younger generations aren't as pressured as much into having kids. Yeah, it still happens, but the way they did it back then, it was like you were disrespecting the family if you chose not to have kids.
Yeah,
so because of my decision in life that I personally made, you're now mad? I never understood this for real. Why don't you go have another kid or something? For now, they're staying in the sack. You still got content creators like it's the 70s blaming people for not choosing to have kids.
If you're not having kids, You're selfish. You should be having kids, sharing your knowledge, your resources, everything you have to give with the next generation. Kids are literally the best thing that is going to happen to you. You should start earlier than you think that you are ready. Having kids
Definitely.
will actually
I think
make
that that's
you
true,
ready.
though.
Because when you have that forcing function in your life of kids, you will do whatever it takes for these little human beings.
People that don't want to have kids are selfish. Point blank. That's the only reason you don't want to have kids, right? But here's the thing. It's okay to be selfish, right?
These people have completely lost what the definition of selfish is. Just searching up the Google definition, it says lacking consideration for others, concerned chiefly with one's own personal
Yeah, I'm
profit.
not going to justify a biological imperative. It's like me trying to justify breathing. Everything on the planet, even unintelligent life, reproduces naturally. They want to reproduce. If you are biblical, if you are religious, obviously in every major religion, it teaches you to be fruitful and multiply. Basically, having kids is an honor. And even if you believe in evolution, if you're an atheist or whatever it may be, you would still be believing in natural selection. And that is, the importance of continuing your bloodline and having kids and pushing, the species on through natural selection. So, I don't know if it's selfish. I don't know what it is, but it does definitely seem anti-human. It seems not natural because everything in nature does procreate. So to choose to not do so seems to be unnatural in some way. There are a lot of different things that it might be. I don't know if it's selfish. It definitely seems a little bit indulgent, like you're doing it for the sake of your own, yourself being able to travel more or have experiences that are going to elevate you. To me personally, me having my daughter was the most elevating experience that I've ever had. And I would much rather risk regretting having a kid, because I don't know anybody who regrets having their kids. I would much rather regret having a kid than risk the regret of not having a kid, in my personal opinion. I don't know anybody who regrets having their kids, especially if they did it the right way under the covenant of marriage with the person that they love. There are some people that regret the person they had kids with, but I don't know very many people that regret having kids, to be honest.
Or pleasure. So how the can you be selfish for something that doesn't even exist right now? That's like someone saying I'm selfish for not donating the money right now that I may be making in the future. Like, I'm still homeless. I haven't made the money yet. To me, it would be way more selfish to have a kid I know I'm not gonna fully be there for and put them through problems instead of just not having the kid at all. With people that say this, that want everyone to reproduce in the world, are you gonna be taking care of their kids if they're not up to the task?
No.
Because if you're not, then shut the up.
No, you have to take care of your own kids. That's how it works, brother. There ain't nobody. It's not the government's job. It's not my job. It's nobody else's job. And if you just don't want to procreate and keep your bloodline going, all we're going to do is see a bottleneck, and it's just going to be survival of the fittest. The people who are willing to adapt to the current circumstances and want to continue their bloodlines are going to be the ones that flourish. And throughout history, you're just going to see a genetic bottleneck. You're going to see a period of time where certain genetics just didn't make it through, whether that be for existential reasons, whether that be for whatever reasons it may be. You're just going to see a bottlenecking, and I'll just make sure that my generation, my bloodline, continues to be a part of the journey of the species, continues to be a part of the thing that wants to be to push the species forward, because I believe that that's what pro-human is. I believe in humanity. I believe in our innovation. I want to see where we go. I want to see what we can do, and so I like people. And regardless of the systems or the people in power that are manipulating us or putting things in place to make things all weird and harder to do and all these other things, I won't let my bloodline die out because of those outside forces. That's just my personal opinion on the take.
Really, everyone in the world can't reproduce because we would be way too overpopulated. And the last thing that changed younger generations is the amount of communities we have. Back then, you had your typical family community and neighborhood.
The death of church.
But it still didn't feel like
the
enough.
Death of church.
You felt like you needed that extra push. With us and social media, there is unlimited communities out there you can be a part of. You can have a community so niche it only has 1,000 people a part of it. For us now, since we're so used to the internet, that's absolutely nothing in the size of a community. When you physically think of it though, that's like 10 times bigger than the typical neighborhood community. So now imagine 1 million or 10 million, and you could be a part of multiple of those communities at a time. It's almost impossible to not find a community you could fit in with online. Anyways, that's gonna be it though. Let me know your reproduction plans, guys, or if you have kids now. Make sure your kids watch Tom Energy for educational content always. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, I love you guys consensually. And until next time, I'm out.
All right, y'all. This one was Gen Z, why Gen Z gave up on kids. I'll leave a link in the description down below. Let me know in the comments below if this video was a W or L, and give me the HBO special. That's to help a brother out special. Hit the like and the subscribe button for more content. Till next time.